Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning. All right, did you like my email this morning? Did you laugh? I don't care who you are. That's funny because we've got a plethora of tips this morning. I mean, just say it with me. Plethora. It's a fun word to say. You have to admit, right, Joe? Plethora. All right. Thank goodness for 100 ways to expand your vocabulary. I got that book years ago, and that was one that always struck me kind of funny. All right, plethora. So we've got a lot of tips today. So we're going to start off and get our market stretches in, understanding the market. So in the chat, let's talk about how many kinds of markets there are. So when someone says, how's the market? And Michael, I probably primed the pump with you a little bit yesterday, but go ahead and type in all the markets you can think of in the chat. Let's see what we come up with. There's quite a few ways to say markets, right? So yeah, we got a geographic market. We've got a luxury market. To Emily's point there, maybe that's defined as a price range. So anything over $1 million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever it is. Horse property, sure. There's a retail market. So I think there's a bear bull market. Okay, good. There's investment market. Okay, good. Wow, Travis and Angie thinking alike. Frustrated buyer market, June. Yes, there's a lot of buyers who are having a hard time right now in the market. The black market. Good. Now, Jim, you got experience in this, or you want to shed some light on the? Okay, got the black market. Write these down really quick. It's just to get you thinking. Okay, here we go. How about we start off with there's residential real estate market, right? So when people say how's the market, we're saying, there's all this commercial, there's residential. We've got location market. We could say things like, how's the canyons? Like, how's the avenues? We've got types of properties. So, like, what kind of type are we talking about? We got twin home, condo, townhome, right? So, we've got a condominium market, PUD market, new construction market. And we talked about the price range market. So I kind of want to get you thinking a little bit more focused on when someone says, how's the market? We often say, well, does that mean the country, the United States? Does that mean Utah? Does that mean Salt Lake County? Does that mean the county? Or what are we talking? So there's a lot of different things about the market. Every morning, if you can spend about 15 minutes studying the market, then you're going to start to see some trends and patterns. So here's the next thing to write down is we're exercising our, getting our market hat on right. We always have to translate it, why it matters to anybody. So you mean, in other words, we've got to say, what does this mean to a seller? What does this mean to a buyer? It's my experience that the market data or statistics don't cause someone to necessarily buy or sell. I think that's a very small group. And in that group, those are people who are investment minded. And we so often deal with housing and residential housing. And so they're often not driven to say buy or sell because of the market alone. The market merely lights the path on what the challenges may be. So when you're talking about data, make sure that you translate into why it matters to them and what things we've learned and what it means to them moving forward. For example, when we say historically low inventory, what that means to a buyer is you're likely to compete with other buyers, right? Okay, so we have to warn buyers, you're likely to compete with other buyers. When we say things like historically low inventory and high appreciation over the last 5 months, we're seeing some counties, guys, that are almost nearing 10% appreciation in 6 months. This is crazy. You know, we've never seen anything like this. So what does that mean to a seller? It means to a seller that you likely have more equity than you may realize. And it's important to net the most in that equity is to get our data right so we know how to price the property. Overprice it, of course, we become a problem. If we underprice it, we might be leaving some money on the table, which we don't want to do. So always make sure that you translate that. Okay, anybody want to comment on that? I'm about to turn the page and talk about something else other than market. We good? Hit the chat if you want to talk or raise your hand. Okay, so we're good. All right. Okay, let's talk about our plethora of tips. Let's first talk about. Okay, let me. I've written down here. And I put in my email a number of different things we want to talk about, and I'm going to pick the order now because there's something I'm nervous about. Okay. All right, guys, what do you think? And if anyone wants to weigh in and talk this out with me, I'd appreciate it. But what do you think about a buyer who's lost out on a few deals? So they ask their agent, and maybe the agent suggests that we remove the due diligence condition altogether. What do you think? So we've got, you know, we've got the seller disclosure deadline, and then there's no due diligence. And perhaps there's not even a financing and appraisal deadline, just a settlement. What do you think about not having due diligence? All right, yeah, go ahead and weigh in. I'd love to hear your comments. So we've got, doesn't there have to be a due diligence deadline? That's a good question. We're going to debate that. Bad idea from Bob. Don't do it, Kara. Bad idea, Travis. Bad news, Bears. Okay. Not safe. Dangerous. Super bad idea. How about reviewing title? You know, that's necessary, right? Remember, due diligence is not just a home inspection. And it's not just inspections. It's also looking at all the data that our seller has given us. And so I don't really like that idea at all. So, but there was somebody who suggested that what they were really trying to do is just make their earnest money non-refundable. I hope you guys are focusing on this right now and not multitasking, because I'm about to really get into some of the details. So let's think about this. You want to make your earnest money non-refundable. So somehow we didn't do a due diligence, okay? And then we go to cancel. Could the buyer be subject to default, or are they subject to other language? In other words, I'm going to put on the table, could they be sued for canceling because they didn't have a due diligence? What do you think? Or are they only jeopardizing their earnest money? This is what was asked to me yesterday, right before sales meeting. Are we in danger of a lawsuit, or are we only risking earnest money if we don't have due diligence? What do you think? Go ahead and weigh in, guys. And I'm going to pull up the form. Let's see. So we go, here is due diligence. So tell me where in here it says that if there's not a, if the box is not checked and the buyer cancels, that they only lose their earnest money. Where does it say that they would only lose their earnest money? So right off the bat, we've got this Y in the road, is or is not. If we check is not, look, let's read this together. The condition of buyer due diligence is defined. This condition is referenced. So if it's checked affirmative, then section 8.1 through 8.6 applies. Otherwise, they do not. So if we mark is not, then we delete 8.1a, B, and C. All this language is gone if we mark is not. So we're left with just what is in section 8 here, which doesn't say that we're protected from lawsuit. And the reason why I think, guys, we get this confused is because of what goes on in 8.3, where it says buyers cancel after. It's got this language that says buyer fails to obtain the loan, meaning the proceeds are not delivered. That means it doesn't fund. Okay, it doesn't fund. Then the buyer shall not be obligated to purchase the property, may cancel, providing a written notice. Right here, seller agrees to accept as exclusive remedy the earnest money deposit. And it says that, you know, liquidated damages are hard to define, but that's all you get. But that's under financing condition, and that's only if we mark that it is required, then this language applies. So in other words, in section 8, we don't get that protection of anything like, you know, you're only going to lose earnest money and everyone agrees to just accept earnest money. Okay. So I wanted to get out ahead of that. I think that's a very, very dangerous thing to do, is to remove due diligence altogether. Okay. What happens if we cancel after due diligence? Is that a default? Is it a default? I love when you vote. A lot of you are like, you know, I want to type something, but I'm just going to wait for everybody else. I think I'll be a spectator a little here. Okay. Well, so if you cancel after the due diligence period, it is a default. Rachel, you're right. It's a default, you guys. Again, there's no protection in any of the REPC that says if you cancel after due diligence that you only lose earnest money. Okay. So you are potentially open to some litigation there, and we don't want to see our buyers do that. So which brings me to the next point. How wise is it when we do have a loan to not have financing and appraisal condition altogether? Now, this is a little different debate, but hey, this is Berkshire. This is high-level real estate. Okay, so now let's debate that. So we do have a buyer who needs to get a loan. How about this? How about we say they're approved? I mean, the lenders over and over, look, I don't need anything else from the buyer. I've got tax returns, verification of employment, down payment, verification of funds. It's done. I got everything I need. I got W-2s. I mean, you know, we've been working at this a while, and the lender says they're approved. And we're in a competitive offer situation, and we're contemplating whether or not we should have due diligence, financing and appraisal as a condition. Okay, what do you think? We've already had this discussion, I think, in sales meetings about removing appraisal. Okay, so an agent writes, you know, 8.2 does not apply. Let's go back to REPC. So now we're saying that the appraisal condition is not. So they mark is not here, but they mark is here. Okay, we have seen that. It's not subject to appraisal. Let's take one of these questions at a time. Is it a good idea to be more competitive to say financing not required, or the buyer's obligation is not conditioned upon, and remove that and the appraisal together? Weigh in, guys. What do you think? So I hope what I'm doing this morning is I'm getting you to look at the cancellation process and what kind of protections we have in language that protects buyers against litigation upon cancellation. Okay, we don't want to be thinking about that when we're canceling. We want to get out ahead of that and talk about this and give our buyers a good education on and options about what they're about to do, right? While we're trying to win the bid. Okay. Okay. I love your comments. I'm not going to read all of them, but very, very good comments. So let's start tackling this. So back to this language that says, see this right here? This is the key. And if you have a REPC handy, you should highlight this. Seller agrees to accept as seller's exclusive remedy. That's really, really important language, that the seller will only get the earnest money. But look, to get this language, what do I have to mark? I've got to mark financing is conditioned. See, then it says these sections here apply. Are you guys following me? Nod if you are. If you're not, I'll slow down. Okay. Okay. So in order to get the protection of this paragraph where the seller only gets earnest money and we're not subject to lawsuit, we have to mark this, right? So now I'm going to get to I'm so excited. I'm so excited. This is good stuff. Are you guys ready for the gem? Here it is. Instead of making it not conditioned at all, consider making it extremely short. Okay? In other words, if you're already approved, and I don't care whether you're going to have that appraiser come in 3 weeks, you could choose, and I think it's better, okay, to have that be 7 days. It's way better than having it not at all, because look at the language I picked up as for protection. I can't be sued if I cancel. Now contrast that to 8.1, and I don't have that protection. You see what I mean? In due diligence, I don't get that protection. I could be sued. But if I cancel, and I cancel based on financing and appraisal after the deadline, okay, after, I get the protection of not being sued, and we only get the earnest money. Essentially what I did is I made my earnest money non-refundable in 7 days. That's basically what I did. I think that's a little better strategy, guys. I think I'd rather see us do that than remove that condition altogether. Okay, now let me look at the comments and see if yeah, see, Rachel's right again, by the way. A student, Rach, way to go. Yeah, I mean, if you remove that, you're subject to a lawsuit, because you're not getting that exclusive remedy language in that section 3. Isn't that interesting? Have you thought about that before? Yeah? Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to look at it. And boy, we're trying to come up with everything we can think of to write competitive offers without putting our buyers in a really tough spot. I made another note here. Don't assume the listing agent understands this, okay? You might have to politely walk them through it, okay? So why a 7-day, for example, 7-day financing and appraisal? Now, remember, guys, I'm talking about someone who's approved, okay? They're solid. And they're tempted to not have the condition at all, right? But so what we decided to do strategically to protect ourselves against lawsuit is we marked it condition, but we just put a very short deadline. Only do that when they have no intentions of canceling, because they're already approved, okay? All right? And don't assume that the listing agent understands what you just did, okay? I don't know that I draw attention to the fact that they don't want to be litigated or lawsuit. I don't think I'd talk about that. I'd just say what we're trying to do is make our earnest money non-refundable in 7 days or 10 days. That is our intention. You guys follow me? My intention of the short deadline is to make the earnest money non-refundable quickly, to give your seller confidence in our buyer. That's why the short deadline, okay? I'm going to repeat it again, but the benefit is we get the protection against litigation by having it in there instead of saying it's not conditioned. Okay, everybody nod. You guys, are you good? Okay, that's good stuff, right? Yeah? Okay, thanks you guys. Thanks Kate and Norm and Tara and Melinda and Leslie and Bob, Sean. Thank you guys. Emily, you're all on my front page here. All right, good. Okay, you ready for another gem? Okay, something else to think about. Okay, here's where we're having some breakdown. I gave this analogy the other day. Okay, people are coming to Utah and they're choosing you as their agent. So they've chosen Utah and they've chosen Berkshire Hathaway agents. And they've chosen them at twice the rate they're choosing anybody else. Kyle and I are working on some stats. I'll either share them in sales meeting next week or coaching next week. But what we're seeing preliminarily, plethora and preliminarily, wow, two great words, is that we are picking up, we're growing twice the rate as the market is right now. Phenomenal news. It's a real testament to our model and to our agents. And consumers are recognizing your value and picking you. Well, I guess what came to my mind is like, they're already at Disneyland, Utah. They've already picked the ride, right? You. But what they have no idea about is how we keep them safe on the ride. Okay, they have no idea. And it's going like this, right? We're just writing offers like crazy. And you've got someone else to write an offer with in 2 hours. And this is some of our agents right now. It's just crazy. So it's so fast. Look, even if you only had one buyer, you're moving so quickly just to get that offer accepted. So here's the problem. How are we going to let's debate this. Which means I need someone to talk other than me, okay? And how about we don't do what the presidential debate did last night, which was,
Should we just role play after Should we role play what happened last night? Should we role play what happened last night?
Yeah, let's not. That was
just
horrible.
Talk. All right, who do you want me to
Yeah. Arnold Stringham's on my shoulder going, Will, keep politics out of it. And you know what? He's right. But that was just, not very, I wasn't very a proud American last night watching those two.
They certainly kept politics out of it last night too.
Right. I mean, does anyone have any idea, a better idea? Not really. Okay, so let's debate this. How are we going to educate buyers on how to stay safe with the offer they're about to write? What are we going to do to tell them about the ride they're about to go on?
It looks like Rachel Moody's got some thoughts brewing in her mind. We should ask her to unmute. Rachel, well, that was a good question for you, Rachel, with your beautiful flowers behind you.
Thank you.
So what do you think, Rachel? You know what, you guys, if you don't know Rachel, she's down in Moab. She's the expert of Moab and has been for quite some time, does an enormous amount of business. So when we're talking about fast pace, I know Rachel has an opinion on this. So how do we educate these buyers, Rachel, on the ride they're about to go on when they hit escrow?
When they go under contract, how do we educate them on how fast they need to go with their inspections and how fast they need to review their disclosure documents and to actually read their disclosure documents and know what they're buying?
Right. Right.
Well, we do it through email and through lots of phone calls and making sure that all those inspections are done and making sure they're clearly aware of all of their deadlines. And you know that your earnest money will be non-refundable at this point. And you know that, once we get that appraisal, the only reason you can cancel is if it isn't come to value. We can negotiate it, but the seller can say no. Make sure to tell them that anything that they find, the seller can say no.
Busy, and also to win the offer, you do have these short deadlines. I mean, have you learned anything in your real estate
In our
life,
market,
I've got
we
to
have
get
to be
ahead of that.
careful with our short deadlines because sometimes they're just not possible. Our appraisers are 30 days out. We only have 4 of them. And if one takes a vacation, then we're maybe 40 days out with an appraisal. So, it's really a juggle to try and be aggressive but realistic at the same time. And I deal with a lot of limited agency too. So it's also educating the seller at the same time that no, we can't button that up any faster. And the only way that you can really play around with some of those deadlines is if they have, the cash backing, otherwise you've got to have those finance contingencies. And, some people just aren't in a position where they can let that earnest money go non-refundable. So it's definitely trying to weigh out what they can afford and how aggressive they can be.
Yeah. Great tips. Great tips. I had one of our Park City agents call me Friday, and they said, well, the deadline's at 5. I looked down at the clock and it was 4:39, and the deadline for earnest money is at 5. And I said, just simply this: does the buyer love the house more or the earnest money more? Because in this environment, if they cancel, someone else is buying it, they lose the house. I know buyers says, well, I don't want to cancel. Well, I don't want to cancel, but I don't want to lose my earnest money. I said, well, they've already extended it once. They're not going to extend it again. Verbally, they said that, but the buyer's like, what do I do? Because my loan is not approved. Now, we still got 10 days to close. So it was just, do they love the earnest money more than they love the settlement? Now, this question about getting out ahead of it is, don't you think that this is generally an education and presentation problem? Because either we're educating them on what we've got to deal with, or we rush through it and they have no idea, and now they're learning for the first time about what these deadlines mean and what their options are. I think that that's most of the problem. I think it's a presentation challenge and how we find the time to educate them on what's in front of them. So, all right, how are we going to do that? How are we going to find the time to do this when everything's moving so quick? I mean, just this morning, I took 3 agent calls before I sent out the link. I didn't even realize it was 9 o'clock when I sent the invite today. I mean, I know everyone is really busy. So how are we going to do this? Kara says, let's do this before we start looking at houses. Leslie says, buyer presentation before we look at houses. Okay. Oh, I love that idea. It's just, okay, why don't we have buyer consultation meetings? And by that, I mean, that is part of my notes today, buyer consultation meeting. A lot of you already have that. And ideally, we would have this time for buyers. And I think we should work to that, okay? I mean, I think that should be our goal, is to take the time to just, hey, this is the process. But what happens is we're lead converting. We get a phone call and we do what we should be doing, which is, is that your price range? Does that property work? Or the property's under contract, or I know of something else. That's what we should be doing. And then then we get the next step, which is, I could sure show it to you. And would Wednesday or Thursday be better? And they say, Wednesday, and you say great. And so you meet them for the first time at the next property. And sometimes that buyer buys that property. And it's just like that. Or you're showing them 2 properties and they buy the next one. So we're lead converting. And where do we inject this preparation and education on what's about to follow? I mean, where do we how do we get disciplined enough to do that? And then in some cases, we're writing an offer so quickly because we know there's other offers, So, I mean, that's, it'd be kind of like people we just put them on the ride. You're at Disneyland, there you are. And we just put them on the ride. And there's nothing, right? It's just, there's no signs, there's no helper, there's no nothing. Nobody knows anything. So there's nothing over the intercom. It's just, there's the ride. So people make a lot of assumptions that are not accurate. Anything else to weigh in? Anybody else? Rach, you want to add anything else to that, or you good? Good. Okay. Well, okay. So here's the tip, guys. You got to make it a priority to educate them on where we're going from here and how this all works. And this is making the buyer consultation meeting a priority. There are so many things. I mean, not only do we have like what they want and what they're looking for, so criterias, but they've got technologies they need help and guidance on and how to do searches. Make that easy. We need to talk about earnest money so they're prepared for that. The timing and the deadlines. This is section 24. The financing process. A lot of people don't understand how long that takes. Intercap right now is doing 2 jumbo loans for some friends of mine, and it's really challenging. One of them is self-employed, and I'm telling you, it's really hard to get jumbo financing right now. And we need to warn our buyers about those kinds of things, to be quick with the demands from the lender. So all of our contract deadlines, inspections, appraisals, agent's role, and the agent's compensation and how they're paid. And how does a seller's concession towards the BAC reflect as a benefit to the buyer? If we don't explain that ahead of time, eventually you'll run into a BAC that's less than 3, and you'll wonder, how do you fix it? Well, if you've had the buyer consultation meeting, then you've already addressed it out ahead of time, and it won't seem self-serving, these conversations, okay? I mean, I could go on. The buyer-broker agreement needs to be explained in detail, and then we need to timeline out everything that's going to happen once they go under contract. If we don't do that, we're putting them on a ride. They have no idea how to stay safe for themselves, and they make assumptions. Another friend of mine was starting to talk to their friends about what to do, and part of it was true and part of it wasn't. So I had to undo the untruth and get them back to what the reality was. And don't trust your friend. Now, the reason they did that is because the agent was so dang busy, it was hard to find the time to really educate the buyer on the process. So let's make that a priority, okay? Let's make a buyer consultation meetings a priority. I think it'll be better for us in the long run. So when we say, how are we going to do this? This is making it a priority, over the next house to show. Okay. Okay. Anything else on that? I'm going to turn the page. This is, again, plethora of tips. So here we go. Okay. Hold, please. I'll be right with you. All right, which one do I want to do here? Okay. This is on the subject of how to win a bid. So this is back to how do we win in a competitive market. So I guess I could put this in a subcategory of my buyer consultation meeting, is how are we going to win the bid? Okay. And I want to look at 2 things. The reason I want to get a running start at this is because I want to end up with the listing agent discussion with multiple offers. Okay. But so let's go with, so we've got, remember this discussion? Yes? Okay. So this is all the ideas we had on how, to win the bid. The latest on this has been to remove appraisal, but it sounds nice. I actually had somebody remove the appraisal, and then the seller calls and said, why is the appraiser here? So the agent just said, well, yeah, we're still going to do an appraisal, but we're not conditioned upon appraisal. So how about this question? Can a buyer, do they have the right to send an appraiser to the property and do an appraisal if it isn't conditioned upon appraisal? What do you think? And by the way, we're past due diligence. Let's go find that. You know what section we're talking about, right? We're talking about section 2, or yeah, 8.2. There's the appraisal. Okay, so can the buyer send the appraiser out even if it isn't conditioned? So we're saying that we mark this as is not. Okay, so like other sections of the REPC, it says if checked in affirmative, then they do apply. If otherwise, they do not apply. That means that 8.2a and b do not apply at all. So where in the REPC could I point to that says the buyer has the right to send the appraiser out? Okay, so some of you are saying it's in due diligence. And go ahead. Did I hear somebody or was that just me? Voices in my head again. Oh, great. Let's see, where is seller agrees to cooperate? Do you guys see it? We're talking about in due diligence. Huh, I can't find it. I know it's in here somewhere. Seller agrees to cooperate with such inspections. Can you guys see it? Huh, shoot. All right, I'll find it. I guess I got too much time on this one. Oh, here it is right here. Seller agrees to cooperate with buyer's due diligence. Notice it doesn't say appraisal. It just says due diligence. So if I'm post due diligence, how does the buyer have the right to send the appraiser? Because 8.2, it's marked is not. None of that language even applies. So where do we get the right to have the appraiser go do an appraisal? Did the seller authorize that? You guys with me? See, seller agrees to cooperate with due diligence. Now, in this list, by the way, I like to, you see this such as right here? Everything after such as, the list of anything that the buyer and the seller agree that they could inspect and evaluate. It's actually, this is just education. This is a lot like the buyer's due diligence checklist. So all of what we see here is a lot like buyer's due diligence checklist. So what would I inspect? And the seller agrees to cooperate. But it doesn't say they agree to cooperate with anything that's not in the due diligence. So I don't think the REPC is very clear on this, and I think we run into a problem when we have when we intend to do the appraisal, but then we don't have the right to do it if it's not done within due diligence. So if you remove financing condition or you have it very short, but you intend to do an appraisal, you might want to get that done in due diligence, or at least add some language that says seller agrees to allow the appraiser to do an appraisal, even though it's not conditioned upon appraisal. Okay, so make a note of that. Again, all this is how to make a stronger offer. Okay, now we're gonna, we've only got about 10 minutes left. So let's go with, now we're the listing agent. And we've got multiple offers. And I want to ask, so do you guys, are we obligated to do the highest and best concept? So let's just say we've got 4 offers. They're all very competitive, very good. Prices are good. The first buyer, when they called, they said, hey, you know, Rachel, do you have any other offers? And Rachel says, no, we haven't interested parties, but no offers. So they're unaware of multiple offers. Buyer number 2 submits their offer and asks the same question. Rachel, do you have any other offers? And Rachel says, yes, we already have one offer in hand. We haven't done anything with it. I haven't presented it yet. I'm presenting them later tonight. Again, 3 and 4 do the same thing. All of the 2, 3, and 4 are aware of multiple offers, but buyer number 1 is not. So here we are. And by the way, when we were asked about whether we had other offers, we have to get approval from our seller before we answer the question. Code of ethics. So that's another one of those getting out ahead discussions. You've got to get approval from the seller. If and when we do get multiple offers, how do you want me to proceed? And they're going to say, what do you mean? Why would we not say? And then you can talk that over and strategize. But there we are. Do we have to give the highest and best concept disclosure to these 4? What do you think? So Rachel, our A student, is already giving you an indication of what that answer is. So yeah, you could just pick the best offer. So here was the question I got. I'll change the numbers just a little bit when I go a little bit lower. An offer comes in for, the property is listed for, here, let me go write this down because I'm going to change the numbers a little bit. Okay, let's say the list price was $519. There's 4 offers on the property, and I got one at $520. I got 2 at $530, and I've got 1 at $540. The highest comp in the project as of now is $480. Okay? Highest sold comp is $480. I've got an offer at $520, 2 at $530, and 1 at $540. And the agent calls in for broker help and says, first of all, do I have to give everyone the highest and best? And of course we said, no, you do not have to do that. The seller can merely pick the best offer. So how do we determine, well, let me give you, let's fast forward. Let's say that one of the 530s and the 540, well, sorry. The 540 is scaring the seller because it's so high. And one of the 530s is really short deadlines and a lot of earnest money and a lot down and had great letter from the lender. And they kind of like one of the 530s. So the agent was saying, if my advice was to, this is how they phrased it. So my advice is to take one of the 530s and not counter the 540. Do you think I'm not representing my client well? And I just said, yes, you aren't. But that's not about the 540. It's because you're telling him which one to take. So we don't do that, right? This is not, we don't say, hey, Will, which one would you take? We don't say, Rachel, which one should I counter? We can march them through this, but this is ultimately their decision, right? And we've got to involve, they've got to stay at the captain's wheel. So always keep our clients at the captain's wheel making these decisions. So here we were contemplating something about what to do with, if we don't do highest and best, can we counter these offers? Sure. Why we could make one of the 530s better. We could even make the 540 better. So I said, what makes you nervous about 540 is that they won't be able to get an appraisal or a loan at 530. Would you guys all be a little nervous about that? Our highest comp is 480. So our problem right now with these is not price. So like, here's my buyer hat. Let's put that one on. Remember when you write an offer? I'm ridiculous. I know. But when I put my buyer hat on, remember to tell our buyers it's not all about price. It's not all about price. It's about other things too. So in this case, they didn't even, look, they weren't even that interested in the 540, which you go, wow, those guys really overshot. They were worried in their due diligence they would march it back or crawl it back. So, which can happen, right, guys? They get under due diligence, they do their inspections, they come back and go, oh, by the way, you know, if you'll lower it down to 520 or something like that, you know, we'll go ahead and remove our due diligence. So let me give you some tips to write down here. You do not have to do highest and best. Tool and multiple offers. Don't skip over that. Don't just verbalize it. We have formal forms for this and processes that are outlined to protect you as an agent and give you guidance. So use that form. Paragraph 1, says you don't have to, you don't have to give, you can just pick the best offer, essentially what it says. You pick the best offer. But you could also counter it. Here's another tip. We determined after discussing the situation that we would modify the 540 to make deadlines really short. And in this situation, we went to the 530, the next best offer, and we put them in backup offer. We countered them with a secondary backup. We got permission from our seller to disclose the deadlines of the primary offer. And we said to buyer number 2, all the conditions are removed in 7 days. You know, it's like, I got good and bad news. You know, the bad news, you're not the primary offer because you weren't the best offer. So we went ahead and accepted another offer. However, I am countering your offer to put you in backup position. And you should know that our primary offer, their deadlines are currently at 7 days. That tended to be, in this case, a pretty good way to handle, as a listing agent, multiple offers. So something to think about. Any questions or comments on that? Worries, concerns? I know every case is different. It's why we have a job, because technology can't rinse and repeat us. Any comments, questions? No? Paige, you're concentrating. I love it. Anything coming to mind? John, you want to weigh in? No? You're good? Okay. Debbie, yeah, asking the highest offer to have earnest money go hard out of the gate may flesh out the buyer. Yeah. Debbie makes a good point. I mean, we may want to say we want the earnest money to be non-refundable right from the start, to see who's really serious. You know, we get letters and we get statements from buyer agents say things like, our buyer is solid, they're already approved, here's the letter, right? Or in short deadlines or no deadlines, and you know, so what if we countered back to say that there's a portion of the earnest money, if we go under contract, it's non-refundable? Because otherwise we end up saying goodbye to some really good buyers, right? And that can hurt a seller. So you might want to consider that, to have earnest money go non-refundable. Can still sit in an account, although warning, if it's sitting at title, it does require that buyer's signature to get it out of there. So that can be another problem. We talked about that in another class. I'm not going to go into that. But remember, if it's a title, that doesn't mean you're going to get it out of there. Okay? Because it's going to require that other party's signature. I guess a note on that, we can put earnest money into the seller's brokerage trust account. Remember, we had a CE class on that with Mark O'Brien, right? And we've got an addendum for that. And it's in .loop. We can manage that as a service to our listing, you know, our sellers, and a service we offer as a listing agent. So that's some legal protections. People don't understand that we have the ability to remove that money from the trust account and get it to the hands of the party who's owed it, where title companies will always have to get the other party's signature to move that out of there. Okay. All right, I've got a few more tips on how to deal with fast-paced life, just something I was reading this morning, so I thought I would download those. We've only got about maybe, say, 5 more minutes, but you want to do those now? Or should we pivot? Are we ready to pivot? Yes? Okay. All right, you ready? Here we go. This is kind of a reminder of the marathon coaching session that we had before, because a lot of these sound like what you do in the mentality of when we're running long distances for a long period of time, right? So the first thing we do is we prioritize each step. And remember, our mental exercise here is you can't do everything today. And it's okay. You're not going to get everything done today. If you got everything done, you're out of a job tomorrow. So you don't want that, right? You don't want to get everything done. Maybe I should go to the Ronies and say, you know, I could have got everything done, but you know, I want you to employ me tomorrow. Otherwise, I got all that content created and all the meetings done. No. You know, with the right mentality, you can't do it all. The other one is to take breaks, and you know, take a deep breath, and you stop at the aid stations. Okay. You have short range goals and short range objectives. And a lot of times I'll wake up in the morning. Well, not a lot of times, almost every time. And I'm excited, you know, for the day. I'm kind of just wired that way. I wake up smiling and happy and ready to go. And I mean, I'm grateful for the life I have and the people I get to work with and things like that. But then I make a conscious, you know, question in my mind. What's the top thing today? I mean, what's the main thing I got to accomplish, or who can I help? And what's most important? And I've got to put that first. And a lot of times it's not business, and it's just life. You know, what's the most important thing today? Because I got to make sure that happens. So what I'll find is that I do get that thing done. And when I hit my head on the pillow at night, I'm happy that I got the number one thing done. So think about that. Here's another thing. If you've got something gnawing at you, and you don't want to do it. You know, the call you don't want to make, the thing you don't want to do and you've been putting it off. You know what I mean? Well, look, if you've argued that it isn't top priority, but it's still gnawing at you and it's affecting your ability to get other things done, I think you got it backwards. You got to go get that. You got to get that done. I've said this before. It's akin to that. Here's my next note. Use a calendar. It's the most underutilized, simplest tool you could possibly do, but it's in a way to get the other things that you can't get done today and place them on another day. And once you do that, you feel better about the day you're invested in. And I know that sounds simple, but my goodness, we're moving so quickly, we forget that we could put this on tomorrow morning. We could put this on tomorrow afternoon, and we don't have to get everything done today. This was me and I always put a little note when I take notes and I'm watching something or a podcast or something like that. I always put MT, my thoughts. So I can say, well, this is what was in my head. It didn't come from the presenter. But I want to remind you guys, you can do hard things. You can do more than you think. So, you know, maybe we set in a goal to it's 3 more follow-up calls. You know, it's 5 thank you cards every other day. It's 10 a week, something, you know, and we make that objective and we make that goal and we say, no, I can do this. Okay. Now you can't sprint every hour of the day. And that's not, no one's going to ask anyone to do that. You shouldn't ask that yourself. Okay. Next, if you're going to be critical of high expectations, I love your high expectation. But will you do yourself a favor? If you're going to be that critical and take that energy of criticism on what you're not doing, will you also take the same amount of emphasis and praise yourself on the things you are doing well? Okay, so you know, take care of yourself and how you manage your mentality on what you're doing. You know, we too often are, yeah, I got it, yeah. Well, you wrote 3 offers last week. Yeah, but I didn't get, and I didn't get, and I didn't get, and I didn't, you know, and we get too much focus on the things we're not doing. And if we step back and say, why the inequality of emphasis? So I just want to remind you guys, you're doing amazing. No matter what part of this journey that you're on, you know, even if you're just getting started, give yourself some credit for what you've already done too. And that can fuel your tank and keep you positive about where you are now and where you want to go. I love high expectations. You know, I love lofty goals as long as they don't sap my happiness. you know, because I'm never going to be good enough. Okay, that's where we've got to manage that. And I would tell you, you can do it. You can do more than you think you can. But along that journey, give yourself as much, you know, love and praise as you would a child or a grandchild that you would be having the same conversation. Cindy, I'll tell you what, after we end the class, Cindy, I'll address, if you guys want to stick around, I'll address the 2 escalation clause question. Okay, let's do this. It's time for takeaways in our plethora of tips coaching session today. Go ahead and type in what you think stood out that you would like to try to implement or do better, that you thought was worth the time today. And we'll go ahead and wrap this up in 2 minutes. But I do print these off, you guys. It's a good way for me to get some feedback through Zoom on what's working. So if there's something that really stands out that, you know, this is our takeaways of today that you want to implement or do better in, or the reason that you were glad that you attended, go ahead and hit that in the chat right now, and I'll just kind of read some of them off. Okay, give myself credit for things done well. Yep. Need to study the REPC more. It's a career thing, Leslie. It never ends. It always is part. No one has ever mastered anything ever. We just keep learning, right? Strong understanding of the REPC. Very good. Manage my mentality. Good, John. Take more time with buyer agreement. Yeah, great. Emphasize buyer consultation. Yeah, get in there and with the details, guys, and the value will come, and objections will fade away when they realize how much they need you. Remember, I've always said, show me, don't tell me. Show them how complicated it is. Show them. Okay, and spend more time with REPC buyers, having a solid set of strategies in my mind, dealing with multiple offers. Very good. You kind of pick those down, Debbie, as you need them, right? You've got a number of things in the toolbox, and you say which tool works better in these in this multiple offer situation. Navigating appraised value, having to navigate around appraised value, good. Page, asking earnest money for sellers. Okay, really good stuff. Buyer consultation, praise myself with things. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna run with something. Just give me one more second. I gotta tell you something. Personal story. Okay, does anyone own a car that takes diesel? Right? No? Yes, if you do. I do. So I've got an F-350 Platt truck. It tows the boat great. We down George, and I was running low on DEF fuel. DEF fuel is the diesel exhaust fluid. It's kind of mostly water, but it goes into a separate reservoir, and it's right by the tank. I don't know what in the world I was thinking, but I opened the gas tank and I poured the DEF in the gas tank. Yeah, Rach, it was not pretty. I couldn't believe it. In 4 seconds, I pulled that thing out and went, what am I doing? So I go on and I type in DEF in the gas tank. Guess what it says? It says, first of all, do not turn that on. If you turn that on, and I didn't know this, I'll just tell you the story. I called Ken Garf. The truck was towed. It was very sad. Very sad. My daughters are like, Dad, it's so sad that your truck is being towed. And I agreed with them. But the long and short of it is, they said, if you had started that, anyone want to take a guess at what it costs to fix it if you pour DEF in your gas tank? Anybody? Just give me a number. Just shoot with a number. New engine. You're getting close. Shoot, I was going to show you when it was towed away, but I can't. Oh, wait, here it is. Anyway, I called. Oh my gosh, someone knows the answer to this. Yeah, it's $15,000 if I'd have turned it on. Instead, it was only $1,100. Only 4-second mistake. Does anybody want to take a guess at what I did to myself after this? I was like, Oh my gosh, I was so mad at myself. What the heck was I thinking? But my kids were like, Dad, you can only complain for like 3 more minutes. And they're coaching me with the things I've said to them. And I'm like, I've heard all this before. I'm still mad. It was awesome. And oh my gosh, my mom kept saying, you have the best children. You've trained them so well. I'm like, I'm still mad. So anyway, my truck's still down in St. George. They dropped the tank. They sucked all the gas out, and they're going to charge me, you know, for my 4 seconds of fun, $1,100. But I'm grateful it wasn't 15, right? Anyway, we all go through this. Am I over it? Kinda. I'm laughing, right? I mean, I'm moving on. I'm grateful it wasn't 15. I'm grateful I can afford to fix it. I'm grateful for a lot of things, but don't we have to kind of do this? Isn't this just life? I mean, I hate it when I fumble. I mean, I really do. I'm not a good loser. I'm working on it, you know? So I hope that helps you guys. You know, we're all going through stuff. And so, you know, take it easy on yourselves, will you? You're doing better than you think. Everyone makes mistakes. If you want to complain for a minute, that's okay. But you know what? Just don't set up tents, right? In like Depressionville, right? Or Angerville. Just don't make it permanent, right? Just get out of there. And it's okay to visit because we're human, but boy, don't stay, you know? Anyway, yeah, they called me yesterday to say that it wasn't congratulations, Mr. Cooper. We did test and it's not going to be 15,000. I'm like, well, thank goodness. So anyway, don't pour death in your gas tank. All right. I love you guys. Sorry for going over. Joe, you can kill the recording and we can just hang out for a sec. Thanks for attending today, you guys. I love you all. I'm proud of you. You're doing great.